The rain had not stopped for 2 days. It fell relentlessly against the glass walls of the penthouse, blurring the skyline of the city that Daniel once thought he ruled. He stood there motionless, his reflection barely visible in the fog pane. His hand trembled slightly as he traced a faint outline on the glass. The name he once whispered every night before sleep, Emily. For 5 years he hadn't spoken her name out loud, but tonight it echoed in his mind louder than the thunder outside. He had everything, a global company, luxury cars, an ocean view mansion, yet he couldn't silence the hollow ache in his chest. Something was missing. No, someone was missing. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and the power of second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness to Heart, because every heart deserves one more chance to make things right. It had been 5 years since Daniel and Emily last stood in the same room. Their marriage had ended not with a fight, but with silence, the cruelest kind of goodbye. She had packed her things quietly that winter morning, leaving behind only a wedding ring on the marble counter and a letter that read, "You stopped looking at me the way you used to." At first, Daniel buried himself in work. His company, once struggling, skyrocketed. He became a millionaire, but each success felt emptier than the last. Every award, every business deal, every magazine cover, none could fill the absence of her laughter echoing through their old home. Tonight, he sat in his study, staring at the photo of them on their wedding day. Two souls drenched in sunlight, unaware of how fragile happiness could be. Something in him broke. Maybe it was the sound of the rain or the way the city lights blurred like tears. But for the first time in years, Daniel decided to stop running. He picked up his phone, searched for her old address, the little house near Maple Grove, and without thinking, grabbed his coat and left. The drive through the storm felt endless. The wipers fought the rain, but his thoughts were louder than any thunder. He remembered the nights Emily begged him to slow down, to just be present, to talk. He remembered how he had chosen meetings over dinners, deadlines over dates, ambition over affection. And now, every mile closer to her felt like a confession. By the time he reached the narrow lane lined with dim streetlights, his chest ached from the memories. He parked the car outside a small, faded house. The porch light was still the same soft yellow. He hesitated before knocking, unsure if she would even open the door. When it finally opened, he froze. Emily stood there, holding the edge of the door, her hair tied back, her face tired yet calm. She looked different, older maybe, but in her eyes was the same quiet strength he once fell in love with. She didn't speak. Neither did he. For a long moment, only the rain dared to make a sound. Finally, Daniel whispered, "Hi." Emily nodded slightly, her expression unreadable. "It's been a long time," she said softly, stepping aside so he could enter. The house was simple, warm, and faintly smelled of vanilla, the same scent she always loved. He noticed the old piano still in the corner, though one of the keys was chipped. On the mantel were framed photos of children, none of whom he recognized, until his eyes landed on one that froze his breath. A little girl, about 4 years old, with big hazel eyes and curly hair. She was sitting on a swing, smiling with a dimple on her left cheek. His dimple. He turned to Emily, his heart pounding. "Who is she?" he asked, though he already knew. Emily looked at him, her lips parting slightly. "Her name is Lily," she said quietly. "She's ours." The words hit him like a tidal wave. He felt dizzy, gripping the back of the couch for balance. Ours. The word echoed inside him, filling every hollow he had carried for years. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but none came. "Out," Emily explained slowly, her voice steady yet trembling with something deeper. Maybe pain, maybe fear. After their separation, she had found out she was pregnant. She had planned to tell him, but by then he had already disappeared into his world of wealth and success. She had decided not to chase him, to raise their daughter quietly on her own. Daniel felt something crumble inside him. All those nights he spent in luxury hotels, surrounded by people but feeling utterly alone. She had been here raising their daughter, struggling in silence. He felt ashamed. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered. Emily looked at him, tears forming in her eyes. "Because you were too busy being someone I no longer recognized. And I didn't want Lily to grow up waiting for a father who didn't have time." The words cut deep, sharper than any blade. Daniel wanted to defend himself, to say he had changed, that he regretted everything, but he knew words weren't enough. Instead, he asked quietly, "Can I see her?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. She led him down a small hallway to a bedroom painted soft pink, filled with handmade crafts and tiny toys. On the wall was a drawing, a stick figure family, a girl, a mother, and next to them, a man holding a briefcase with a question mark over his head. Daniel's chest tightened. The innocence of that drawing said more than any accusation could. He stepped closer to the small bed where Lily lay sleeping, her tiny hand clutching a teddy bear with a missing eye. Her breathing was gentle, rhythmic, a sound so pure it broke him. He knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead, and for the first time in years, tears rolled freely down his face. He whispered, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Daddy should have been here." That night, Daniel didn't sleep. He sat on the couch while Emily made tea, both of them wrapped in the silence of old wounds and new truths. She told him about the struggles, working 2 jobs, paying bills late nights when Lily asked why other kids' daddies came to school but hers didn't. Daniel listened, his guilt growing heavier with every word. When morning came, he stood by the window, watching the sunrise paint gold across the rain-soaked street. He turned to Emily and said quietly, "Let me help you. Let me make it right." But Emily shook her head. "You can't just buy back 5 years, Daniel. Money doesn't fix what time took away." He nodded slowly, understanding for the first time that redemption wasn't about grand gestures. It was about presence, about consistency, about showing up. Over the next few weeks, Daniel did just that. He began visiting often, not as a millionaire, but as a man trying to rebuild something fragile. He'd pick Lily up from preschool, help her with her drawings, and read her bedtime stories. Slowly, she began calling him Daddy, shyly at first, then with a joy that melted him each time. Emily watched all of this quietly. She was cautious, guarded, unwilling to let old wounds reopen too quickly. But she couldn't ignore the way Daniel's eyes softened when Lily laughed, or how he fixed the old piano so she could play again. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, Daniel came over with something wrapped in cloth. He asked Emily to sit by the piano. When she did, he carefully placed the bundle beside her. Inside was a music box, the same one he had promised to buy her years ago when she said she loved its song. He wound it gently, and the familiar melody filled the room. As the tune played, Emily felt a rush of memories. The laughter, the dancing in the kitchen, the dreams they once shared. And then she saw him kneel beside Lily, teaching her to clap along to the rhythm. Something in her chest broke open, not from pain, but from a quiet, aching forgiveness she hadn't realized she'd been holding back. When the music stopped, Daniel turned to her, his eyes full of tears. "I don't expect you to forget," he said softly. "I just hope one day you'll let me earn a place in both your hearts." Emily didn't answer right away. She looked at him, really looked, and saw not the man who once left her, but the man who was finally trying to come home. She nodded slightly, her voice trembling. "You already have." It was that one gesture, the simple act of bringing back a forgotten song, that broke her silence after 5 long years. It wasn't money or apologies that healed her. It was the sincerity of a man who finally understood what love truly meant. Months passed, and their bond slowly deepened. Daniel sold his mansion and moved closer to them, choosing a smaller house where laughter filled the walls again. Every morning he made breakfast for Lily, walked her to school, and shared quiet coffee moments with Emily. The 3 of them became something whole again, not perfect, but honest. And one spring evening, as the golden light poured through the curtains, Daniel watched Emily play the piano while Lily sang softly beside her. He realized that life had given him another chance, not to be rich, but to be present. to be loved not for his success, but for his sincerity. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness to Heart, because sometimes all it takes is one act of love to rewrite an entire story. Before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe people can truly change if love gives them one more chance? And as the last note of the piano faded that evening, Daniel whispered to himself, some second chances don't come twice, and this time, I'm never letting go.